Cannonball. What's happening, faithful listeners? It's October 6, 2016. The Week 5 Daily Fantasy Roundup edition of the Lion Sports Talk podcast is coming to you live and brought to you from our good friends at Sunday Swim. Better your Sundays. Go out to SundaySwim.com, set up a league. You can do it any time in the season. Bet against the spread. Games start at 1 o'clock. It's a blast. It lightens up every mood. Go play some Sunday Swim. Better your Sundays. It's fantasy time, joined again by Harbor Mike. Harbor Mike, say hi, buddy. What's up?
Hey, buddy. How you doing? How's everyone doing out there?
Everything's great, man. We're doing good. We, on the west coast of Florida, as you know, are doing a lot better. We're a lot more fortunate thus far as our friends on the East Coast, just hoping that they can get out of there with the little amount of damage as possible, even though this is a bad-looking storm, man. It's not pleasant.
No, Florida's due for a punch in the nose.
Yeah, and I'm just, least as possible. Hope everybody got themselves and their loved ones and their pets and their lives out of there as best they could, and they can go back on Monday and everything will be fine. So hearts and thoughts are out there with those folks. But the show does and must go on. It's Thursday. Got a game tonight. It's a shitty game tonight, if you ask me. It's San Francisco, Arizona, and the fantasy implications in that game have fallen apart with some injuries. The injury bug's all over the place. But what we want to talk about, like we did last week, is we really want to pinpoint those Sunday games, the 1 o'clock windows, the 4 o'clock windows, the Sunday Mondays, the good stuff. Mike, you'll admit as well as I that neither one of us had the best fantasy week last week.
No, I think we should have combined forces on the team, and I think we would have fared much better.
Yeah, that probably would have behooved us to do so. Like I had mentioned, I didn't turn out that bad. I caught a couple lucky breaks. Crabtree worked out well. Steve Smith worked out pretty well in those areas. But, you don't combine everything in the right spot, and then you don't get that big winner. But it is what it is. And, all you can do is ante up.
Yeah, and we're learning now with 4 weeks gone what to expect. We were kind of stabbing in the dark before.
Sure.
Which we thought was going to happen, obviously. And now we can kind of get a better idea. Remember, I was high on Mike Wallace, and now we've seen he's come back down to earth. He's a good number 2 receiver in their offense, but their offense isn't very productive to begin with. And they're going back to the old man, which we had laughed about and thought they weren't going to be doing. So
yeah,
again,
he's their number 1. Steve Smith is their number 1 in Baltimore now.
Exactly. So he would be a good number 3, maybe not this week, but just in general. But I would back off from either one of those guys now, because we see that they're going to be run first and then try to set up a pass, and then it's going to be short to intermediate stuff, and they might have the occasional big play, but it's not worth riding for now. So we learned that lesson.
Yeah, and it's fantasy football.
Exactly.
It's ever changing. It's boring to women, and it's a blast for us.
Well, there's some cool women like it.
There's a few. There's a few, and a good portion of them are actually listening to this show right now. And those ladies know who they are, and boy, we appreciate it, man. It's great to have you, and all the contributions and all the help on Twitter and moving everything around. It's great. We look forward to doing some more with you guys. But, let's jump into it, man. Let's put together the best FanDuel DraftKings lineup we can, based on an above-average approach. You and I have both been successful at this. You more than I have, but we've hit strides. Both of us have where you just get hot, and then we hit strides where you get cold. I don't know that last week was a cold spot. I think that we just had a couple things that we misjudged. I was really excited about the Charles Sims idea, just thinking he was going to be a nice play in the guaranteed payoffs because nobody would have him. I think I was right. I think that was his owner percentage was pretty low last week.
Well, and I was surprised at how futile he really was, because you can run the ball on Denver. I didn't expect Jameis to throw, to be so dominated, but they are a great defense, so it's not a shocker.
Sure.
But this week, going on the same premise, I like Devonta Freeman for the same reasons that I liked Charles Sims. Now,
you're loyal.
well, I believe, honestly, I think there's a lot more efficiency to the Falcons' offense.
Okay.
And I know early on in the season, neither one of us thought very highly of that.
No, but That's difficult to argue with.
You know, so and the fact that that Tevin Coleman probably won't be used very much because of his sickle cell trait. That I honestly believe that
Probably should play.
Even if Devonta Freeman doesn't have a huge statistical game, he's going to catch the ball 6 times for 30, 40, 50 yards. He's going to run the ball for the same, and he might get in the end zone. Denver's allowed 5 rushing touchdowns. So given all that, it's not a stretch. And what we've seen so far is the wide receivers are what's killing you this year, not the running backs. So if I get 15 points, I'm going to be happy.
And, you know, you do a real good job of selling it because I'm looking back at some of Charles Sims' statistics, and it wasn't a good day, but it wasn't for the offense's lack of ability to game plan him into the game. He just didn't make things happen when he had opportunities. Now, granted, that Denver defense is very, very good. It's probably the best defense in the NFL, neck and neck with Minnesota anyway. But
exactly,
you know, you lost 2 points with Charles Sims on a lost fumble, which was just straight up bonehead from both him and Winston. It looked like Winston to me was calling for the football. If you recall the play.
When you lose 2 points, the fumbles will kill you. And
yeah,
like I really like how Devonta Freeman is running the ball. He knows his job's in jeopardy. He ran tough last week. So I really think that given the nature of, you know, Mile High and they might set Tevin Coleman altogether. I mean, he could die. So
yeah, no, and they should. I remember when Ryan Clark, when Mike Tomlin made what I thought was a pretty wise decision to tell Ryan Clark, you're not playing.
Right.
With life or death, it's not worth the football game, and I agree.
So it makes sense that he's going to have a limited play snap or just altogether not use him. I mean,
it's
their magic number that sickle cell, you know, kicks in.
Right.
You know?
Anything after 7, and you're going to get sick.
So I think that's smoke and mirrors for their game plan, and he won't. I don't know if he'll play at all.
Yeah, and he is definitely on a sit-'em list. I do own him in a couple leagues, and he is not a player I'm not willing to start him anyway against Denver in Denver. But I agree with you. I think it's good that you point that out, that he probably won't see.
There's no way Julio Jones is going to have 300 yards again. So they have to run out some offense through somebody else, or you're going to see Atlanta get blanked. So that's not going to happen. I think they're a little better overall.
I think they're quite a bit better than Tampa, although Tampa went into Atlanta and beat them week 1. You know as well as I do in the NFL, you are not the same team week to week unless you are great.
No, right.
And even when you're great, you're going to have an off week once or twice where you're just not hitting. Look, sports are a funny thing. It's difficult to duplicate the exact same thing over and over again. And in my years in baseball as a pitcher, there were nights that I'd go out in relief and throw, 2 solid innings and smoke everybody, and the next night go out and absolutely stink. And you could never figure out why. It's sports. It's funny. Some nights you go 4 for 4, and the next day you go 0 for 5 and strike out 3 times. I've done it. It's sports. So the great ones are more consistent than the others because everybody does have a great day. But I got to stay away from everybody in Atlanta. There's got to be better options out there. So that would be my justification. If there's value in other places, I know you're going to get Devonta Freeman cheap, and he may have a monster day. But you're likely, again, going to be under 10% ownership, which is helpful.
Well, again, like I said, when you break down numbers, we don't have to get that 25 points that we desire, obviously. You know, we can get a lot less points, and I think just by his usage, he might not – his stat line as far as when you're watching the game, he might not get anywhere, but still on paper, 30 yards both ways and a few catches – that will add up, and then I think he's going to score. I really do. The Denver's given up, like I said, 5 rushing touchdowns, and that 4 2 yards of carry, so you can rush on them.
Well, and you go back to opening night that Thursday night. Carolina was able to move the ball on the ground.
Oh yeah.
They were able to use their running backs out of the backfield. I recall Jonathan Stewart popping a couple nice dump-off passes. I could be remembering incorrectly, but I thought Stewart might have had a nice night. So, yeah, it's not against anything other than the law of averages right now that a running back could have a nice night against Denver. It happens against everybody. I'm just looking around right now while we're on running backs. I think you bust your nut on Le'Veon Bell. Pittsburgh at home against the Jets. This Jets defense has struggled. Their offense is pitiful. This sounds like a game to me that Pittsburgh is staying as hot as they were last week. Darrelle Revis sucks. He's old. He may as well take his walker to the X side of the field.
He does. I don't want to argue against. I would never argue against Le'Veon Bell. That would be foolish to do.
Yeah.
However, I know that the Jets are pretty stout on run defense, 3.1 yards carry. They've given 1 touchdown. Again, I know Bell is going to be serviced more through the passing game as well as the running game, so that gives him the same kind of value that Devonta Freeman has. Now, obviously, he's a way more successful back. But what I'm looking for is the best options for me. That really takes away from other options that I think are going to be way more successful.
Why? Just because of the overall spending?
That's like me. If you ask me, one of the best wide receivers this week is certainly Antonio Brown.
Sure.
But I have a couple things up my sleeve that I think you get more value out of. So again, it is Le'Veon Bell a bad pick? Not by any stretch, but he's expensive. So unless you want to go with a couple of points that I have later on in the show, then I would stay away from him because it's going to be hard to put together a complete team.
Okay, well let's start here with the building process. As we start the building process here, let's try to get running backs established. And where are we going with the running backs? And let's just dial through that.
Yeah, running backs. I like. Like I said, we've already talked about Freeman. I also I'm on the Melvin Gordon train again, specifically because of the matchup.
Yeah.
He's been shut down in the running game a bit, but he's still getting touchdowns. He's still catching a few passes. So I like him. Again, I think
he got 6 touchdowns on the season already.
Yes. So that has to end eventually and miss a game or two, but I don't know if it's going to happen this week against Oakland. They've been giving up some yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns, 5.1 yards a carry. So he can be successful on the ground. I like Jordan Howard against Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Like personal back that he had 111 yards, I believe, on the ground last week. And he's given up 4.2 yards a carry, 5 rushing touchdowns in 4 games.
Yeah, and the important to note, I like to play anything against that Colts defense this week. This is, I think, the first time that a team has come back from London without having a bye the following week. Think about that. This team is 1-3 coming home from London, no bye.
I will say this, though, that I know that they
are playing the Bears.
Yeah, they made a couple switches on defense this week and let a couple people go because
they did.
For the first time all year, they're healthy in the secondary. So, again, that might give us more strength with our Jordan Howard pick and stay away from Chicago wide receivers, obviously. Outside Zach Miller.
The two defensive players that they cut were Antonio Cromartie, who, 2 things, has not tackled anybody in 15 years and can't run anymore. If he could run, he'd be someplace. And the linebacker that they cut was C.O. Moore. Now, both of these guys have started the first 4 weeks of the season, but I'm familiar with C.O. Moore in Oakland. And a lot of the Raider chatter is, will they just bring him back and kick the tires for the hell of it? And the answer is going to be no. Him and Jack Del Rio had problems. C.O. Moore gave Del Rio disciplinary issues. He's doing it to Chuck Pagano. They cut his ass. This shit doesn't get put up with at the NFL level for as long as some people think if you're not a superior talent. So Indianapolis with some changes, they're really struggling to stop anybody. I think Jordan Howard's a great pick because he's inexpensive too.
Yes, exactly. Again, we're looking for value, and I don't really want to spend too much money on my running back. But again, maybe if we have Le'Veon